We are recording now. I'm Doug Lasher, Commissioner, C Subcommittee, and we have Commissioner John Latta and Commissioner Greg Anderson here. Go over proposals for vacancy section of charter. I sent some information out. I think I wanted to make a clarification on the work plan. I thought we'd over that and we could go over it again. But I was told by the powers that be, Mission Secretary, that the September meeting is just to present the work plan and to could present our slide, and we can present everything that we've done if we're done, finish this. If not, we really like to have a more finished product to discuss in October. So it gives us a little bit more time to a few more meetings if we need to in September do that, or wrap it up and just vacation between now and just before October if we want. If we find anything anybody wants to ask for a meeting, we'll have a meeting. Something that needs to be clarified. John.
Doug, I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you. You're breaking in and out, and I don't know if it's on my end or yours. So
Sorry,
I'm going to ask you,
let me.
can you hear me okay?
Can you can you hear me, Greg?
Doug, you are. I had to turn the volume up, and every fifth word drops out.
Sorry.
And I hear John just fine.
Can can you can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
is it better? Okay. It may have been I had
seems
this
better.
away, and sometimes it plugs into the computer there, and it may not be partially coming out. So,
You sound better now
all right.
to me.
Well, I'll just mention again that the work plan, the they just want to have the work plan presented, maybe our charts. We can present things if we get things accomplished. If not, we have they really want to hear the more details of the plan in October, so we would definitely need to have things sort of wrapped up in September, and we can and as we can come back. You could call a meeting anytime you want to, um, and we'll do that. And but I just wanted to let you know things don't have to be solidified today or next week or whatever. So, um, but we do need to have that work plan sort of finalized if we need to do anything more with it. And we could come back to the work plan, but I thought we could just jump into the meat of our. We basically have four options out there, and if there's, I did send you some minor wording corrections last night. I know that there's some other issues that John that you had brought up, and if you wanted to go through those, I caught another one of the shells there, Greg. That was one of the issues, and the just a couple other minor wording changes. But so we have our draft documents, and John, you had some uh, issues or concerns or clarifications that you would want to talk about.
Uh, yeah, I can talk about that now. So Doug and Greg, I think that what we have now is really good. I like what it says. Uh, I do have a problem, and I think you know this, so that uh, it's not really in clear language, and there are several places where that it's really really unclear language in that there are questions built into the words, like, and because we're writing this, I think, for the people of Clark County. So just put myself in a voter's shoes, and I'm looking at the voters pamphlet, and it tells me what the ballot measure is, and that's going to be the words on the ballot. And then when you go to the actual changes that we're making to the charter, if you want to try to understand that, you're going to get stuck, because one glaring example is the phrase that shows up several times, and we've already proposed it before, that the election's going to be run in the manner for partisan elections, even though we're talking about a nonpartisan office. That's a built-in question. So I think if there's a way for us to say what that really means, rather than saying it that way, saying what that really means for the public so that they read it and they'll understand it, we should. And also, the other phrase, let's see, I'm talking without looking at it right now, but I can look at it.
Uh, uh,
The phrase that says filled by election or the
mm,
except, yeah, provided that an election to fill the vacancy shall not be held if the successor to the vacated office will be elected at the next general election. Well, that's trying to say something. We should also try to say what it means, rather than yeah, it was vetted by we assume it was vetted by King County, and that's good. And so that means it really does. We think it actually says the right things, but it just doesn't say it in the right way for me.
Well, if I can kind of go there, the lawyers haven't dove into this yet, is another piece of it, even though King counties theoretically have. So I'm thinking if it's misunderstood or misconstruing something, they'll fix that too. Because in my experience writing code and reviewing codes, you try to make sure you express your intent and then let the lawyers figure out how to write it. So
it,
it sounds kind of weird, but that's
yeah.
really the code writing skills that are out there.
Actually,
So yeah, if we
yeah.
can express our intent better, then that would.
Yeah, that's where I would like to
That's
focus
what we
on,
need
not
to do.
trying to
Yeah.
focus on the mumbo jumbo of the actual charter chapter.
Yeah, the King County folks actually took it out of a particular statute, which was 42-12-040. What's interesting about that statute, it does say this section shall not apply to any vacancy occurring in a charter county which has charter provisions inconsistent with this section. So, because if you use that statute, and that's what Pierce County does, King County tries to work around that. What it could include, and I have a call into the elections manager in Pierce County to get clarification in their charter how they administer it. But if you were an incumbent and and you filed your for re-election, and there were 4 people running against you because one, either you're in your 70s and you're wanting to run for one more term, or and other people think it's time for a change, or they're having issues in their office, and so it's generated candidates to run against that person. And they had a hunch that they were going to, after filing during the campaign time period, let's say in June or July, said, this isn't working out well. I think I'm going to resign, create a vacancy, and delay the election. I mean, that's the way the statute reads. And you wouldn't have it until 18 months later. And that way, maybe things will change and you'd have a better shot at being reelected. So that's, I left that question to the Pierce County election manager, and they haven't gotten back to me because I think they're seeing the same thing that I am, and they're wondering, whoa, did we create something here that may be a problem? But it's in statute, and it probably needs to be fixed in statute. What ours is trying to say is that if there is a vacancy, prior to the election, it doesn't say anything that you have a delay of. Well, I'll have to double check that. I want to make sure that it isn't saying that. But the intent was to, if you resign before the filing, that you would just go ahead and conduct a normal election, and it wouldn't have an impact. So I
Well, but yeah, I guess it depends on how long before the filing period, right? Because you might want to
after,
want to install a temporary
well, you would,
until
Right.
yeah, you would, it automatically installs. I mean, our wording automatically installs if you resign prior to filing, it automatically installs somebody in the office. It's just that, they'd be running the office for a few months,
Okay.
and then the new person would be elected and come in there. The question was, what happens if a person resigns after that month? And
Well,
our language is saying you just continue with the election. I think.
and if it's after a filing period and it's a seat that's not up, say they're on off schedule, then typically I've recently experienced, I've seen it where the elections office opened a special filing period for candidates to appear.
Mhm.
And
Okay.
that's built into their normal process,
Yes.
provided it's enough days in advance
Right.
to an actual election. Otherwise, the appointed temporary, or whatever word you want to call it, would be in that office until the next routine election for that cycle.
Right.
Typically 2 years
So
or 4 years.
My understanding, and maybe I got it wrong, was that there's a general election every November. So
No, that in this situations,
your
the
4-year term.
partisan schedule and the nonpartisan schedules are on the every other year.
yeah, but
And we're telling on the main part of the charter that even if the position is a nonpartisan position, they're following the partisan schedule, which is every 2 years, even numbered years.
yeah, but it was my understanding, and that's what that was my understanding also. But my understanding about how to fill a temporary vacancy was that we would fill if it's after the filing period for that regular schedule, then we'd fill it temporarily until the next November election, whether it's odd or even. And then if it, for instance, if it was an odd numbered year, or it wasn't time for an election for that office yet, that wasn't time to start a new term for that office yet, then the person elected would just fill the remainder of the term.
They fill the remainder of the term up to the next scheduled general election for that type of position.
Okay.
That's built in, because we've run into this in the city several times. People were thinking that because we had vacancies a year ago that they would have been on the presidential ballot, and they weren't. They got kicked to the next
So we need to,
nonpartisan
I think,
schedule.
yeah, so we do need to talk with the lawyers in it, because my understanding is that, November is called a general election, even if whether it's a partisan or nonpartisan year,
yeah,
it's still called a general election.
I think you're, John, you may be on to something here. It says a vacancy in a elective assess, I'm just looking at the one, a vacancy in an elective assessor, auditor, clerk, prosecuting attorney, sheriff, or treasurer shall be filed at the next primary general election, which occur in the county. So, um, so if any time during, they have a 4-year term, and so it's addressing any time during the first 3 years. If the person dies in office after they get sworn in, it'll be if they had time enough to fill out who their person would be to run the office, they would do that until um, and the office would be declared vacant, and they would at the next general election, primary and general, they would you would have a race, and that would be position. So every year, it's that 4th year when the term ends, um, and it's open, um, and the person, even though there's a campaign going on, they are serving until December 31st of that year, resigns sometime during that time period between after the filing date. Would you, what happens? And I think that's in state law that they have not addressed that particular issue. It's that people can't ever remember that happening, and it probably won't. And maybe we shouldn't be worrying about that detail until it does happen, uh, unless we could come up with some answer between now and November that we can solve that issue.
I did propose some language that might might fix that, but I didn't, but I wanted to run it by you. And I emailed it to you also,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I
I
saw
have.
it in the comments, because it might have been buried in the comments, but, where did I put that? So yeah, a vacancy in an elective county councilor position, for instance.
Yes.
And I said filled by voters. I wanted to add by voters because that seems like it clarifies
Mhm.
that what it is we're talking about. It's not a appointment. It's, an election. Um, but where it says, instead of provided that, the words that we had before, or what we have now, an election to fill the vacancy shall not be held if the successor to the vacated office will be elected at the next general election, which that's the one I really had hard time understanding what that was trying to say. But until Doug tried to explain it to me, and then I'm still not sure. But uh, but I say, provided that candidates were allowed the normal filing period for that election. And it seems to me like that kind of that covers the situation where if there was a vacancy, an unplanned vacancy after the filing period, that, it goes back to the original appointment process until the next general election comes around.
Unless there was another person on the ballot
Yeah,
that
if you have four,
filed,
yeah,
if the person that was in office and he or she filed and someone is running against them, that person's name may still be on the ballot even though they're dead, but or whatever, or resigned, depending on timing as well.
yeah, and that's the
There's
piece in the state statute which we can change to fit our needs. Um, that the point that Craig is mentioning, that how do you if someone's after the filing date and they resign, according to that RCW, it flips to the succeeding year. But you got all these people running against this person, so they just get knocked out.
Their
You
term of
can't.
office will expire
Yeah, but
Yeah, it will. It
Yeah,
would anyway.
upon resignation.
Yeah, it would anyway, right? I mean, no,
Yeah.
it would anyway because
By
they didn't
resignation or
file.
death. And
oh,
Apparently they
by
didn't
death or
file, right?
resignation, and whether they filed or not, they
But if
may
they
get
didn't, yeah,
reelected possibly if they didn't die, but
well,
they would be out of office
yes,
during the election.
yes, yeah. Okay.
And if they didn't file, then it's really gone.
So
well, yeah, it seems
if
like they
someone
didn't file.
resigns afterwards, and then because the way this RCW is states, if
Okay, they resigned. That means they left the office.
Right.
right, but it says if it's done after the filing date, it moves to the next succeeding election.
Okay,
And that'd
that's
be another year. And here you got all these people running for this office that get knocked out because they guy
well,
resigned.
Oh, yeah,
that's
I'm sure
poorly
that's
written.
not what it's meant to be.
That's poorly written.
So
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you were hitting on a point that I started losing it again here. That might address that. You're saying that if they resign, you just continue on with the election. Now, if they're the only
Yeah,
person running, then yeah, you'd have an appointment until the next succeeding election, I guess.
right.
But if you got a campaign going on, you let the campaign continue.
Right.
Yeah.
And depending on how we want to do it, the vacancy in that interim period of time is filled either by the
But
designated person or by an appointment process for the remainder of that term until the election is certified.
yeah,
Then the person who's elected, even though they come in before their term begins, it's because the office is not a permanent office holder.
right. And so the person is actually immediately, if the person resigns or drops dead, whoever's on that list is immediately running the office until the election. So
Right.
yeah, there needs to be a little modification there.
If we can
Yeah,
say
the
it,
code.
yeah, the simpler that we can say it, I think is better.
Yeah.
Because we don't want everybody else to have to try and figure out what it says.
Well, what our intent, I guess, is that we want the election to continue on in that fourth year term if he resigns during that
Well, yeah,
after
I think you can put that in notes and let the legal beagle people clarify ours to make sure it doesn't have the same ambiguity that the RCW has.
yeah. Okay.
I don't know how. I know what
I-
you're now trying to say, but I just don't know how to unsay what an RCW erroneously says.
So, and is that
yeah, but
RCW?
we do have the flexibility to write something.
Right, but I don't know what the right word for it is because
Yeah.
because we're going. Normally, I would say the partisan schedule and the nonpartisan schedule, but that will really confuse people.
Yeah. No,
Could we say on the next even or the even year schedule instead of say partisan, nonpartisan, because people don't know that means even year, odd year.
we could we
We
can
just say what it means.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would
Yeah.
probably.
We could just add it to it to say which means even year.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Even
but
year election cycle, even year
Yeah.
election, and just
Yeah.
yeah.
Instead of partisan, nonpartisan.
well, I think we still need to say that because it cues in terms of the other statutes that may pertain to this process
Right.
that's
Yes.
in there. So we just need to explain it as John was saying. So even I got cut there.
All right,
Even
so we can
year.
write it, if we write it for the lawyers, we also have to write it for the general public. So,
Well,
Correct.
the lawyers will do
okay.
their own writing, and we're stuck with it. Really, the law is more of statements of process, procedures. It's the law is that it's giving instructions on how to govern. So that's the way that they write it. So it's very phraseology, and very do this, do that, do that. I suppose they write it in a paragraph form, but you can almost put it in a bullet points or 1, 2, 3 type of
Mhm.
process. So it's difficult. Laws aren't written as novels, but they
Correct.
are, but they're
No,
written as that. So
yeah.
and that's how their training is in terms of writing that. I used to do
So
this at
yeah, and I think
Olympia.
I think what we're doing is more like the Constitution rather than the laws, right? I mean, it's the structure
Yeah,
that the laws are going to be written to if they have to write laws to implement it.
yeah.
Um,
But
so
there is laws. I mean, this is a law procedure ordinance too. Yeah, it's sort of a combination of both. The preamble
right,
definitely should be well understood. That's for sure.
Yeah.
okay, I'll keep that. I'm on the preamble committee, so I'll keep that.
Yeah.
And we all liked your input to the bullet points that we wanted to somehow incorporate in
Okay.
there.
Thank you. So you mentioned a phrase. I was writing it down and I only got partway done with it. I want to make sure. So we want to say partisan is even year. You had another word.
Schedule.
Schedule.
Yeah.
Okay.
Partisan, comma, even year schedule, comma, proceed, whatever the rest of the sentence is.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
I- I'll
Yeah.
I'll I'll rewrite that and send that out. Please
Yeah.
review my
Fine.
drafts. I sometimes do this again at night and I miss stuff and I'm really tired, but I sort of get into a groove after a while after I do other things and I think, oh yeah, I got to work on this. Um, so um, if you want, I could take another crack at this, but I think you're right. I mean, our attorneys need to review this. That's why I'd like to sort of get this sort of done at some point where we three feel okay with what we've written so that we could give it to Chris to maybe early on so that she could have a crack at it, or Amanda, whichever one is going to work on this. They may both work on it. So that they feel comfortable with it. But anyway, I think I understand. This part, provided that an election to fill a vacancy shall not be held if the successor to the vacant office will be elected at the next general election. Um, Actually, I think that's what King County was trying to resolve is that issue under 42-12-040 says provided that the election to fill the vacancy shall not be held. It's just saying that, hey, when you have an election, you're going to run that election. I think that's what it's saying. Where 42-12 allows them to run it the next succeeding election. They put succeeding, so it stretches it out one more year after filing date. And if you just say you're going to have the election no matter what, doesn't matter if the guy resigns before or after, you're going to have an election because that 4-year term is up and the voters get to choose have an effect to see if the office is performing to their likeness and want that guy still there running the operations. So,
Yeah, so I'm still unclear on what we're saying there. Are we saying that that phrase should not even be there? 'Cause it
What we're,
says,
no,
what we're,
I-
I think we can clean it up with the language we talked about a few minutes ago and have Doug send it out. And I think that'll, but we're trying to fix a glitch in the state law.
mhm. Yeah, we don't want to carry it forward. I mean, we have an opportunity here to make our own rule, you know?
Right. Right.
So,
But
yeah.
yeah,
okay.
by us having something in the charter, it will supersede the law as the way that law is written. And even if it's not necessarily perfect, that's when it gets revised. But
Yeah.
the state law gets silent the minute there is something in the charter that provides for the process.
And maybe they'll like our words better.
That's hope.
Yeah, it says it doesn't really talk about whether the that the election to fill the vacancy shall not be held.
But
It says sort of the same thing. If I'm interpreting this right, and I'm just looking at the one that has the that paragraph there. The vacancy of an elected assessor, auditor, clerk, treasurer, shall be filled at the next primary general election, which occur in the county. So that in the first 3 years, that could happen, provided that the election to fill the vacancy shall not be held if the successor to the vacated office will be elected at the next general election. It's basically talking about the 4th year when their term is up. And you're right. It's
for example, if I
a
were to
successor is a bad word.
correct, it is a bad word. I have a 4-year term of office. If I resign after year 1, it's up on the next election cycle for my office group as a group, not necessarily my position. And it comes in off cycle for a 2-year term.
Mhm.
That's
Well,
the
it'd
normal
be
way.
you'd
So
have
it,
you'd have a
but
3-year.
if the vacancy is after the second full year, that's when it goes to the next election cycle.
Mm-mm. I
Yes.
when I ran for office, the treasurer resigned, and I had to run twice.
Yes. So did
And,
I. I did as
yeah,
well.
and so I had to run to fill out that year, and then
Mhm.
run again
Yes.
for the remaining
2 years.
2 years.
Yes, I did this exactly the same thing. I was
Okay.
appointed in February to fill a vacancy of a
Mhm.
person that had been in office for 14 months.
Okay.
So I had to run that following cycle and then run again at the end of that office's term, which was total term was 4 years.
Yeah.
So that's normal.
Okay.
So should that, does that only happen in an even year, or could you have been elected to
Well,
fill the
Yeah.
remainder of the term in an odd year if that
It,
came, you know, if the timing was that way?
it follows the schedule for the office. In other words, don't get wrapped up in the terms, but I'm just trying to make the differentiation. Nonpartisan election cycles happen in odd years, and your term of office starts the January of the even year.
Right.
So we're following the partisan schedule, which the elections are in even years for the terms starting.
But
Okay, I think I understand
we
that.
may
Yeah.
we may want to ask Kathy from the elections office just walk through that piece with us that we're and
Sure.
just make sure.
Because I think it's written in the how their administrative code works.
Okay.
I don't think they have to invent anything each time there's a vacancy and
Right.
process.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like the machine, you know.
Right.
So there's a WAC that covers that.
I
Maybe we
think
should-
there is, but Kathy could probably cite it chapter and verse because it happens fairly often.
I'll I've had some discussions with her on this. I could ask her if you wouldn't mind having a meeting next week.
I'm not available next week, so please have it without me.
Oh, well, I'd
Uh,
like to have it.
I mean, have the meeting without me. I'm fine. I know how it works. I just don't know how the administration behind it works. I don't.
Yeah.
You would want it next Wednesday, Doug?
We don't have to. We could do it
There's
another day.
Yeah, it could be another day. If it's another day, I could do it. Actually, I could probably do it next Wednesday if you wanted to. But
Yeah, I didn't set us up on recurring meetings, so I have to have advance
yeah,
notice to the
No.
folks.
yeah, I can have it any day next week except Wednesday would probably be the worst because it's full already.
Okay.
But there's room in the morning, in the
Okay.
afternoon.
Well, we could get back to that in a moment, but I just thought maybe it might be helpful. But the word successor is probably a word that they use because it was one that sort of had an understanding, but it's not.
The right word.
Yeah, it's not an understanding to the people writing it, but not necessarily to everybody else. Yeah, yeah. There needs to be something more like that there'll be an election no matter what. If you when the term ends, there's an election no matter what. You
Yeah.
can't you can't resign because you may be losing and then cause the election to have to be run the following year. So that's something. Okay. I will I think we need a little more work on that. I mean if but I did want to mention I did talk to Kathy about because we are they're still working in a partisan um, election process cycle for these positions. Um, that they do need to have the word primary and general election there because people are, even if you only have two people or I'll have to double check on one person, but that's a question we could ask Kathy too. That even if two people, they show up on the primary and they show up in the general election. So it's
Yeah,
you know,
they do, which is really kind of strange, but they
well,
do.
it's because it's part of the fundraising activity
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
other positions, not necessarily for these positions though. That's the thing. I can understand it for
It is what it is.
yeah.
well, I understand that you want to that it says primary, but the reason I offered that we could remove that word is because that's really not when they're chosen. Because in that sentence it says
Correct.
they're chosen. They're
Yeah,
not chosen
yeah.
in the primary. They're chosen in the general. So
Well, if there's more
um,
than one, I mean, if there's three people running, then
Then it gets winnowed down.
but
yeah.
it's still the successor is not chosen until the general. So I mean,
That's correct.
True.
oh, I mean that sentence seemed like it had extra words in it that were unnecessary because they're not chosen during the primary. That was my thought anyway. If
Okay.
there's a reason to put it in that to say the primary, um, I just assumed that it was understood that yeah, that's part of the process.
Well, since we got this little section, if it's not there, then it may be cause more problems on the other end for the administration of the stuff. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I think I think the three of us are agreeing on what we want to say. It's just how we need to say it is the tricky part.
yeah.
And,
Okay.
and I'm going to keep saying that we need to make it understandable to the person reading his voter pamphlet.
Oh yes.
Well, that's the interesting part of that. The two paragraphs at the front, the actual proposal and then the explainer is really for the most part all they read. I read the code section in the back, but most don't go that far.
Yeah.
I think it's
Yeah, you're probably right.
engineers and people like that tend to like to read all the codes.
Well, yeah.
And politicians, yeah.
Sorry, but it's true.
It's true.
So, well, did you have any other? I think we need to come back to that, have a little bit more adjustments there, which is great, and we need to. Is that the only section, or is there any other sections of these four different scenarios, I guess is the word to say, that we need to look at?
Yeah, I think you covered the my original problem with the even if we don't pass, even if we still have partisan officers and partisan counselors, the current vacancy rules that are in state law I think they're missing a piece, and that's the case where somebody claims to be independent or claims to be something other than one of the organized major parties. That wouldn't work. So we needed to go back, which I think we did now. And
Yeah,
fall
yeah,
back
we
as
have
it
that
looks like.
section that'll
Yeah.
be in there for those folks. I just hope our number 1 and number 2 resolutions pass.
Yeah.
People think that they are from the talk. I think people are just sort of tired of the politics of the day and want to just,
And now we're straying from the path, so
yeah,
we need to not do that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, anything else on
Nope.
the details? Okay, the work plan. Um, we have I I guess some of the folks are planning to do surveys. I'm still trying to figure out the logic and the value of it at the doing it so quickly in a short period of time in November after um, we sort of the committee or the commission makes the decision on any additional um, resolutions for 22. And I was assuming that there'd just be some, and I don't, yeah, there'd be virtual town halls. And I think they are planning just to do virtual town halls for feedback and to go through that sometime in September so that they're ready to do that. But they may want to do some surveying.
Yeah, but that wouldn't happen till November as well, and it needs
Right.
to be open for long enough, but yet closed for long enough to have the decisions made from that data.
Yeah.
So so we only have November, and that's it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
that's
you got,
Yeah.
yeah, it's, so I sometimes wonder the value of doing a survey at that time and just try to do more town hall outreach and just because in a sense you got the whole year of 22 to campaign and push for these
And
issues.
explain, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. I didn't put that in there, but is there any additional changes that you want on the work plan? I think they'll probably we'll have to actually move the present final resolution to October. So I think that's what they're wanting to have.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
hoping that
and
we could
that
get it
gives
done.
us time to run it by the, to work out the language too, and
Yeah. So I'll push that over and just say that we'll be presenting our work plan and we could present the slide. That won't really change. That's pretty broad. Is there any changes to that slide presentation?
No, we pretty much said we liked it last time, so unless something's
Okay.
falling off the table.
Well, I just didn't know if there was something that needed to be added or on that, but I think it's pretty broad in general, not getting the details. So I'll just put those two in there and do the final presentation. Do you want to, we could look at doing a meeting later in September then, since we don't need to, we're not in a real rush to have a meeting and set it up, something up with Cassie, so all three of us are there, so that we're all hearing the same thing.
when is, Greg,
Let's,
when are you available?
Later in September, I can do the 15th if we're stuck on Wednesdays.
no, I could go any day.
The week of the 13th right now is the first available week that I have anything available worth beans.
Okay.
And there's still exceptions because I've got a C-Trend meeting in there somewhere.
We could still work on this language back and forth as we send emails, but we probably want to have a meeting with Kathy. No, next Wednesday is out. Is that what you're saying on the?
That's for me. I'm not available.
Okay, well, I want to try to make it. I'm going to be out, but I would be I think available. As I mentioned, I'm going to be I'm planning it, though my plans are real iffy at this point because of some family matters I have to deal with, caregiving type things, and but I could I could be not available until the 23rd. I would be available anytime after that. But I can probably do something. It's just logistic wise, it might be a little challenging for me.
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that we do it so we have
Sure.
time to do any changes before our meeting on October 6th.
Yeah, the further out my calendar goes, the less fuzzy or less clear it becomes. So unless we pick a hard date now,
Do you want to try the 23rd of
that,
September?
That works for me.
I have an 11 o'clock meeting already on that day. Other than that,
We could do a different
fine.
time if that works. I got all day.
Yeah, my meeting's at 11. So
Do you want in the afternoon or
early afternoon would work?
What about you, John?
Yeah,
On the 23rd.
that still works for me.
So
1:30.
1:30.
1:30 sounds fine on the 23rd.
See if we can either have Kathy or
Yeah.
answers from Kathy by then too.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll try to get her on boards so she could answer these questions. Because I did say to her that I would sort of share what we have here so that she may come back in Oh, I could, do you want me to share it now to her or wait until after the 23rd to share it with her and then she could come back and make additional changes possibly?
Probably, my suggestion would be share it with her, relatively speaking, soon, so she has a chance to chew on it.
Yeah, because there might be other things that
Yeah.
she'll see that may need. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll make these changes as best as I can, and just have the meeting on the 23rd. Send it to her. Let her chew on it, and have a round robin with 4 of us on this.
Yep.
Okay, 23rd at 1:30, and I will send out an invite today,
Okay, cool.
and we'll anything else for the good of the order? Do you have anything, John?
Well, the week after the 23rd, I may be out, but we're still solidifying our plans for that and planning a trip, but
Okay.
it's iffy.
Well, are you going to be here the first week of October?
No,
Oh,
I'll be
see,
on the road. If we go on the trip, I'll be on the road then,
okay.
first week of October. But you know,
So you'll miss our commission meeting.
yeah, likely. I likely miss
Okay.
it. I can zoom in, you know, or what, you know, maybe depending on
Sure.
where we are.
Yeah. Or you could be on the phone or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And okay, so we'll do the 23rd and we'll have at least another week that we could, if we have to meet again. I need to have so many days, so it would be like the 29th or 30th or 1st of October
Okay.
if we needed to move
Well,
on something.
we'll cross that bridge when we see what's underneath it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'll turn off the recording then.
And I'm going to go to lunch.
Okay, then we'll end the meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
The recording has stopped.